Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Pacelle. We are on lesson 8-4 of our Pearson book. We're on page 475 in our volume 2 edition. We're going to be using models today to multiply two fractions. So let's go ahead and start by you grabbing your materials. We'll start on page 476. If you need to pause me and come back after you're there, we're going to start by looking at the visual learning example. All right, boys and girls, there was 1/4 of a pan of lasagna left. Tom ate 1/3 of this amount. What fraction of a whole pan of lasagna did he eat? So we see the little girl's thinking that she needs to find 1/3 of 1/4 to solve this problem. So 1/4 is left and he's going to eat 1/3 of it. So remember, that's your word clue to indicate you're going to be multiplying those fractions together. All right. First way, they are going to use a bar model. They're going to divide one whole into fourths, and you can see that if you can imagine this big bar. I'll just draw it out right here, broken into 4 equal parts. That's where they started, okay? And you can see each part is in the black. All right, we're going to divide the other fourths into 3 equal groups. So it looks like they did that with the green marker. So each one they kind of divided into 3 equal groups, okay? And then 12 parts is what we now have make a whole. So one of the parts they shaded right there is 1/12. So your product is 1/12. All right, that's using a bar model. The second way is probably my favorite way if you're going to have to visually look at multiplying fractions, and that is using an area model. And with this one, it tells us that we're going to shade one of the rows yellow to represent 1/3. So what they didn't basically point out is that we're going to draw a rectangle. We're going to break it into 3 rows. That denominator tells me I need 3 rows. So in order to show 1 out of 3 shaded, they shaded the top row yellow. So 1/3 is shaded. Then across the bottom, they actually made 4 columns. The denominator here tells you, so 1/4 is right here, the 4 columns, and they shaded one of the 4 red. And where the areas cross, where you have overlap, that is where your product is. So you have 12 new total equal parts in your area model, one of them shaded. So 1 out of 12. So if you multiply 1/3 times 1/4, you're getting 1/12. All right, here it is using multiplying numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. I said I didn't think you guys needed this step right here because you know 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 4 is 12. That's a good way to check your area model, making sure that your area model is showing that 1 out of 12 equal parts is overlapped. So the answer to this particular scenario is that Tom ate 1/12 of the pan of lasagna. All right, I think it'll be easier if we do one together. So let's look at the convince me. All right, and it looks like we're using the area model. So I see we're multiplying 1/4 times 1/5, and we're looking for the product. So I just like to do this. I like to label my work. And I know that I have 4 rows. They've already drawn the 4 rows for me, and one of them needs to be shaded. So I'm just going to use a diagonal going in this direction to represent 1/4. And then we're multiplying it by the fraction 1/5. So I have 5 columns already made for me, and the denominators tell me how many columns and rows we need, and the numerator tells me I want one of them shaded. And so that I can see the overlap, I'm going to make my column shaded opposite. All right. And the product is where the overlap is. So I'm going to just lightly shade it. It is this one particular rectangle out of 20. And I know there's 20 because there are 5 in each row. 5 times 4 is 20. So I get a product of 1 out of 20, or 1/20th. All right, let's check it with what we know with just multiplying numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 5 is 20. I get 1/20th, so I know my model is drawn correctly, and it's representing 1/4 times 1/5. All right, boys and girls, let's take a look on page 477. They're showing you on this particular page at the top using a number line. So in this number line, you're finding 2/3 times 3/4. So they're telling us that 1/3 means 1 of 3 equal parts. So 1/3 of 3/4 is 1/4. 2/3 of 2 of 3 equal parts. So 2/3 of 3/4 is 2 times 1/4. Again, they're just going to check it down here with traditional. You can analyze this. I'm not such a big fan of using the number line. I think that you guys as 5th graders seem to see it better as the area model. But this one right here, to check it, 2 times 3 gives us 6. 3 times 4 gives us 12. All right, 6/12 simplifies to 1/2, and that one's pretty easy. You can see that 6 is half of 12. Otherwise, you could divide the numerator and divide the numerator and denominator by 6 to get your 1/2. All right, let's take a look at the guided practice. I actually just want to move on to number 3. All right, we're going to find 5/6 times 1/2. So we're going to use this model they've already drawn to help us solve it. So obviously here are our 6 rows. So we need to represent 5 of them being shaded. So let's see, that's going to be all but the last one. And I'm going to use diagonals going this direction. All right. And then we're going to multiply it times 1/2. You can see that the columns, we have 2 columns, and we're going to shade one of them. So we'll use the opposite direction shading. And then we're going to look at, I have 12 equal parts. That's the denominator. And where they are crisscrossed or overlapped, I have 5. So my product of 5/6 times 1/2 would be 5/12. Now let's just check it. Make sure we did our model correctly. I get 5/12. So there it is. That's exactly what we're looking at. Now number 4, they didn't give us a model. We have to draw it. So I need some kind of a rectangle. Thinking it's going to need to be pretty long if I need 9 columns. So I'm going to represent 3/4 with my rows. So I have 4 rows. All right, 3 of them are going to be shaded in a minute. Actually, I can go ahead and I'll do that in a minute. The columns 9ths and I don't have enough, so I'm going to have to make one more. All right. So here I have represented my 9ths, and I'm going to need to shade 4 9ths. All right, so 3 of the 4 columns are going to be shaded. So that's going to be the first 3. I'm going to diagonal this way for those. All right, and then 4 out of the 9 columns, I'm going to shade an opposite way, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going over to this line. All right, now to find my product, I need to look, and I see that I have 4 rows of 9, so I have 36 new equal parts. And where they're double shaded, crisscrossed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I have 12. So I get the answer 12/36. We know that's going to simplify. We can do that later, but let's check it. So 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 9 is 36. I can check that off. That's what my model shows. All right, this is what I want you to do. want you to get a piece of paper because you're going to need it for 7 through 14. And I will wait on you to pause me and come back with a sheet of paper. Probably the best paper to use would be graph paper. Graph paper works great for drawing these area models. Multiply 1/3 times 5/6. And what they've already done is they've already broken the model into 6 equal parts. All right, we're going to be focused on 5 of those equal parts. So I'm just going to make a little note here that we're going to be looking at 5 of these equal parts to find our product. All right, and we need to break each of the parts into thirds. All right, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We have 18 equal parts. All right, we need to shade 1 out of each of the thirds. So let's just all right. Now, I'm not going to worry about this part right here because here's where 5 of the 6 equal parts are, and 1/3 out of each of those gives me 5. Okay, so my numerator is what each of these are shaded. Again, this is not a favorite model. I would prefer to draw that with an area model. I just see the product easier where the numbers or where the columns and rows actually crisscross. All right, let's look at that with number 6. So 2/3 times 1/12. So we've got 3 rows, 2 of them we're going to shade one direction for the rows. All right, and 1/12. So they've made our 12 columns, and we need to shade 1 column. Okay, and so very simply, what we have is we have 2 shaded out of 12, 24, 36. So we have 2 36 shaded. And of course, that is going to simplify. That gives us 1/18 when we simplify it. All right, to check it real quick, 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 12 is 36, and then you would simplify it and get it the same answer. Go back and check this one. 1 times 5 is 5, 3 times 6 is 18. All right, let's move down. Numbers 7 through 14, we're going to draw the area models. You're actually going to pause me. You might want to do 1 or 2 and then check them, and then do another 2 and check them. Whatever works for you. If you want to do all of them and check them at one time, that's fine. I'm going to pause it so I can get mine ready so you can look at them. All right. All right, boys and girls, I've got my paper ready. I always like to put my page number that I'm working and the lesson number. And when I'm done, I either staple or tape it in my book so I can get to it easily. But let's start with number 7. Number 7, we're multiplying 7/8 times 1/2. All right, so what that means is, and this is why I love using area models, we need 8 rows. So we can just start right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sure I have 8. All right. And then I am going to have 2 columns. So there we go. That's going to make my area model. So this is where I'm going to have 7/8 times 1/2. Okay. Here's my 2 columns. Here are my 8 rows. All right, 7 of them need to be shaded. So that's all but 1 row. We're going to go crisscross this way or cross this way. And then 1 of the 2 rows, I'm going to crisscross the opposite direction. All right, so I have 2 rows, two columns of 8 rows, so I have 16 total parts. 7 of them are overlapped, so my product that does not simplify is 7/16. Now I'm going to check it over here with just my standard algorithm. Numerator times numerator gives me 7. Denominator times denominator gives me 16. And that does not simplify. 7's a prime number. It's not a factor of 16. All right, check your model against mine. Make sure you understand how to make it. And let's take a look at number 8. Number 8, we're going to multiply 2/5 times 1/12. All right, so the first factor is broken into fifths. So what that means for me is that I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and I need 12 columns. All right, double check that. And then I'm going to connect them together. All right, so here are my 5 rows to represent my denominator in my first factor. All right, these are my 12 columns that represent my denominator in my second factor. And I'm getting ready to shade them. Let's go ahead and write what we've got. 2/5 times 1/12. All right, boys and girls, 2 of the 5 rows need to be shaded. So I'm going to take the first 2. And 1 of the 12 columns gets shaded the opposite direction. And what I see is that I have 2 areas that are overlapped. That's my numerator. And the denominator is the total number of equal parts. Well, I have 5 rows with 12 squares in each one. So I have 60. And that is going to simplify by 2 halves to give me 1/30. I want to put it in simplest form. All right, let's check it. 2 times 1 is 2. 5 times 12 is 60. I know that if I simplify by 2, the greatest common factor, I get 1/30. So I know my answer is correct. And I found the answer in the model by correctly representing that multiplication problem. All right, let's take a peek at number 9. Number 9, you're multiplying 5/7 times 7/9. And I know that. It's written in the book 5/7 of 7/9. That's my word clue that I am multiplying. All right, so I need to draw 7 rows and 9 columns. All right. So I need to shade 5 of my 7 in just a minute. Okay. And then I need to shade 7 of my 9 columns in just a minute. I like to go ahead and get everything drawn, and then I go in and do my shading. All right, 5 of the 7 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to take me down to here. All right, so I have just shaded 5/7, and now I'm going to shade 7 of my 9 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's going to take me over to here. All right, now I need to find my denominator. So the total number of new equal parts that I have 7 rows with 9 squares in each one. So 7 times 9, 63. So that's how I find the denominator. And what's shaded are these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in these 5 columns. So that would give me 35. So I get 35 63rds. And honestly, that is going to simplify. The greatest common factor is 7. Both 35 and 63 are divisible by 7. So 35 divided by 7 is 5. 63 divided by 7 is 9. So my answer is 5/9. All right, let's check it with the standard algorithm. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. 5 times 7, 35. 7 times 9, 63. We already know we're going to simplify by 7/7 to get 5/9. So there it is, 5/9. All right, let's move right along. Number 10 shouldn't be hard to draw. We're looking at 1/2 times 3/4. All right, so those denominators are telling me how many rows and how many columns I need. So I need 2 rows, all right, and 4 columns. All right, 1/2 times 3/4, or 1/2 of 3/4. All right, there's my 2 rows. There are my 4 columns. I need to shade 1 out of the 2 rows. I need to shade 3 of the 4 columns. Okay, now I have a total of 4, 8. I have a total of 8 new equal parts, and where they crisscross, these 3 are where my product lies, 3/8. Let's check it with the standard algorithm. 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 4 is 8. So I know my answer within my model is correct, 3/8. All right. Number 11, 1/4 times 7/8. We need a model with 4 rows, 8 columns. We're going to shade 1 out of the 4 in a minute, and we're going to shade 7 of the 8. So here's my 4 rows. And my 8 columns. All right, we're going to shade 1 of the 4 rows. We're going to shade 7 of the 8 columns. So that's everything back to the left. All right, in my model, I have a total of 32 equal parts. I know that because I have 8 squares on each of these 4 rows. So my denominator is 32. I have 7 where the crisscross overlays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there is my product, 7/32. Checking it with the standard algorithm, numerator times numerator gives me 7. Denominator times denominator gives me 32. I know that 7/32 does not simplify because 7's a prime number and it's not a factor of 32. All right, let's take a peek at number 12. Number 12, you were multiplying 5/6 times 9/10. All right, we're going to have a model that has 6 rows and 10 columns. All right. We're going to shade 5 of the 6 rows in a minute, and we're going to shade 9 of the 10 columns. All right. So 5 of the 6 rows would be all of them down to this point right here. So all the rows above. All right, and then 9 of the 10 columns, that's going to take us all the way over to right here. All right, so I'm looking, I have 6 rows with 10 squares in each row. So I have a total of 60 new equal parts. All right, I'm going over 9 and I'm coming down these 5 rows. So I have 45 of them shaded, 45 60ths. All right, that is going to simplify. I know that these are both multiples, of 15. If I count by 15. So if I simplify 45 by dividing it by 15, I get 3. And 60 divided by 15 is 4. So let's check it with the standard algorithm over here. 5 times 9, 45. 6 times 10 is 60. When I divide by that 15, that common factor, I get 3/4. And that does not simplify. 3 is not a factor of 4. So I've just checked my model. I did a good job. It's really looking good. All right, we're almost done, boys and girls. Number 13. We're multiplying 1/4 times 1/8. All right, need to draw a model with 4 rows, 8 columns. So I'm going to be shading 1/4 in a minute. My 8 columns, I'm going to shade 1 in a minute. All right, so shading 1 of my 4 rows. And 1 of my 8 columns. All right, I have 4 rows with 8 squares in each one. So I have 32 equal parts. And 1 of them is overlapped. So I get the product 1/32. Let's check it with the standard algorithm. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times 8 is 32. So I know I did a good job on my model. All right, the very last model I'm going to do with you before you move on to your independent practice is number 14. Number 14, you were multiplying 1/3 times 3/7. So the model needs to have 3 rows and 7 columns. I'm going to shade 1 of the 3 rows in a minute, and I'm going to shade 3 of the 7 columns in a second. All right, 1 of the 3 rows. 3 of the 7 columns take me over to here. All right. Now, to get the product, the total number of equal parts. I have 3 rows with 7 squares, so I have 21 equal parts. That's my denominator. Where the crisscrosses overlap, I have 3 shaded areas. So 3/21. That's going to simplify. Knowing that 3 is the common factor. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 21 divided by 3 is 7. I get 1/7. Let's check with the standard algorithm. Numerator times numerator gives me 3. Denominator times denominator gives me 21. I've already talked about 3 being the common factor, so I get 1/7 as the product, and I know my model's correct. All right, boys and girls, I have a couple resources I'm just going to show you on the video. It's in the Google Classroom. Before you get going with your work, you have a couple of choices. You can do the book work that is coming up on pages 479 and 480. Whatever your block is, you do that book work, or you have the option to go into your Google Classroom, scroll down till you find lesson 8.4. At the very bottom, you will see I have posted the Practice Buddy. The Practice Buddy right here will give you some problems with this concept. Of course, you've got to work it out on paper before you can fill in your answers, but it will automatically let you know if your answers are right or wrong. All right, boys and girls, I hope that helps you with multiplying fractions. We're using models today. Our essential question, just going back to that, was how can you use a model to multiply a fraction? We looked at 3 different kinds of models. We saw the bar model, the area model, the number line. The book really had us working with the area model. That's what we did all of our independent practice on, especially numbers 7 through 14. So you can use whatever model you're comfortable with, but just make sure you check it with the standard algorithm. We're going to talk about soon, we're going to talk about why when we multiply a fraction times a fraction, we get a much smaller fractional part. So we're going to get to that pretty soon, but right now let's just get down the models and check it with that standard algorithm. All right, have a great day.